What's up, everybody? I am Baron Baptiste. I'm here with David Masters. This is the show for disrupting the drift, the disruption of the conspiracy for mediocrity that humanity kind of drifts along in life by default. This is a place where we can tell the truth and the truth can be told. Please share the show with people in your life, people close to you, people you know that you think this show could make the difference for them or a difference. Please subscribe, turn on your notifications, leave a 5-star review of the show if you're listening on one of the podcast platforms or on YouTube. Once or twice a week, we're posting these shows on YouTube. So look for us at Baron Baptiste on YouTube. Send questions to disruptingthedrift at baronbaptiste.com. And hello, David. How you doing, my friend?
Doing great, Baron. Good to see you.
Yeah. You know, the world is very, very interesting. And, I say interesting because you could look at what I'm noticing is where I could put my attention on a lot of different things right now. If I want to look for just a lot of wrong things going awry, I'll see that. And that's there and that's happening. That's truth and fact. If I move over, though, to people, there's also a lot of suffering in the world is what I'm seeing. I mean, people I know and people that I don't know, and I see at a distance and somehow get wind of what's happening in their lives. I'm kind of taken back. There's a common theme of people are being challenged at their core, like the core of their being in different ways, in different fronts, difficulty, challenges, troubles, whether it's health or financial or someone close to them is going through something really difficult or just weird, bizarro situations happening that is happening at a much more of like lightning speed and much more typical than I want to say pre-pandemic. And I'm curious how you see this. If you see it, is there something that we're in the impact of the pandemic? You know, shutting the world down in the way that it got shut down, and the impact on people just suddenly losing their everyday flow in life and their income and their what have you. In different ways, different people were impacted, but nevertheless, there was great impact during the pandemic itself. And I'm in the kind of looking of like, this is like, we're in the impact, the repercussions of taking away people's lives, people's purpose, people's routines and flow, and suddenly people are left in the experience of having lost themselves and not having the understanding or the connection or the self-awareness or the knowledge of self to, transcend difficulty. What do you see, David?
Well, I believe that most people do build their lives on the sand. And then when the tide comes in, they're shocked when their sandcastle gets washed away. And, unfortunately, because they've been set up to believe things that really are fundamentally not true, and especially believe things about themselves that are fundamentally not true. And one of those things is that, basically you can do whatever you want in life and escape the consequences or the repercussions of that mindset. And you really, if you think about it objectively, most people lived in a pretty good comfort zone. And believe it or not, there's a survey, and I know this will tweak a lot of people the wrong way, but in February of 2020, there was a survey of people's life satisfaction, and 90% of people said that their life was good. Now, to me, that's one of the highest measures of life satisfaction I've ever seen, right? And so, that was at the end of the Trump era, but the idea was that a rising tide lifts all ships. And so when everybody was doing great, I think that a lot of people took that for granted. And now that we are in this time after COVID, after the lockdowns, and now we're into this total new world odor with all the insanity that's going on. It's all beginning to have a cascade effect, a domino effect, a backward domino effect, and it's knocking people over. And people have not been prepared mentally, spiritually, or emotionally for the change that's happened as a result of this entire. It is a planned assault on individuality. It's a planned assault on removing our personal wealth. It's a planned assault on our minds. And a lot of people, as a result, have developed mental illness, alcoholism, committed suicide. And because when your world gets disrupted at the level that we've seen in the last 3 years, man, you can expect this wave of horrible depression, anger, confusion. Now the question is, what is the way out? And the way
Well,
out
but
is go
yeah,
ahead.
before you jump into the way out, I wanted to say that yeah, it's actually been March of 2020 is when it started,
Yeah.
and the pandemic, and I remember I was in Ojai, California, at a summit, a global summit I do, and we had, I don't know, a few hundred people there, 200 or 300 people, and the world was literally it shut down the day this summit ended. And I remember speaking to the group and saying, you're going into a different world. The world's changed. We're in a bubble here, and we are not going to be the same on the other side of it. The world is not going to be the same on the other side of it. Most people there didn't believe me. They, because people are just going along, right? But within, and that was March 2020, and then within 2-3 weeks, you suddenly, at first the first week or two, people are like, oh, I get to stay home from work. This is like snow day or something.
Mm-hmm.
But then when reality starts kicking in that this isn't going away anytime soon, and then you start getting, people start getting feeling trapped and feeling controlled and not knowing what to do with themselves. You start seeing this kind of implosion, and then fast forward to when did George Floyd? He got killed in May of 2020, right? So fast forward, how many months would that be? So from second half of March through May, that 2 or 3 month period, people were so suppressed and stuffed down energetically. And then when that happened, you suddenly saw the floodgates open up. Now, okay, there's the issue of George Floyd, but that's not what I'm pointing to here. I'm pointing to the sea of humanity. What happened there with people is people don't know what to do with energy and all that, suppressed anger and rage and fear and uncertainty. That was already there for most people well before the pandemic, but people were occupied. Maybe they had purpose in life. They had jobs, they had activities, or they totally distracted and entertained and just, on the go, busy. So suddenly you force quit, you press pause, and suddenly it all catches up to you. And you don't know what to do with all that energy. So when the George Floyd thing, okay, some people were legitimately outraged and what have you, but the majority of people that used an event like that to unleash their personal, all that pent up, like Jack in the Box, it's like turning on a fire hydrant and just not knowing what to do with it, and just it spilled out not only into the streets, it spilled out into social media, it spilled out into our culture, our society, into humanity at large. It went from, was that in Minneapolis that occurred? It went from there through the whole US, North America, and then it went global. And the whole planet was in like a volcanic eruption of toxic debris. Now, media plays on it like, oh, this is all because of George Floyd. But if you are half awake and you know about people, you know about humanity and what runs people or how people operate, you could just see people were from imploding to exploding. And it just give me an excuse to, it's like New Year's Eve, give me an excuse to party. I mean, they needed some event like that, and then the media played on it, and then the world changed right there in a whole other kind. The division that is set in amongst people and amongst humanity, and the division within people, within themselves. I mean, suicide's off the charts, drug use is off the charts, depression, anxiety. I mean, big pharma is just, I mean, they cannot keep up with the demand of psychotropics, and, antidepressants and all. They just can't keep up with it, like the demand. It's interesting, but where does the dust settle? Because it's not settling. It's not settling for most people, for humanity. Okay, so David, I want to point it back to you. Where you're getting to what's the solution? That's what I want to hear.
Well, there's a saying that sunlight is the best antiseptic. And so the question is, where are the caverns in our mind that need the sunlight? Because if people are going to try to treat their unhappiness and their depression and their struggles with the remedies from the world that created these problems, there is no hope. But if there is light, and wherever there is truth, there is light. So, and the greatest teacher that ever lived said, know the truth and it shall make you free. But so then the question is there a conspiracy against truth? And you know what? We know there is. And it's in social media. It's in the mainstream media. It's on every level. There's a conspiracy to keep truth from the minds and the hearts of the average person. And believe it or not, Baron, and I know that you're probably aware that somebody blew up the Georgia Guidestones. Do you know what those are?
No, say more. I mean, I know of them, and I remember that event a year or two ago, right?
It was a monolith that was written in, I think, the 6 major languages. But really what it was a manifesto for the New World Order. And part of that New World Order was on those Georgia Guidestones was a population reduction to 500 million people. And so if we look at this objectively, we look at all of the distress that people have been put under, the upheaval of their ordinary everyday lives, the assault on their children from the dark forces that want to get a hold of children when they're young and teach them sex education and strange things. And now we've got this study, and we talked about this a little bit, a Pew Research study shows a scientific correlation between the individuals who hold progressive ideologies and an increased risk of mental illness. This is a scientific study. This is what Pew Research found, and putting all the politics aside, the shocking diagnosis of over 50% of liberal women with some form of medical diagnosis. This is a public health crisis, and I guarantee you that if it's among the white population, it's among every demographic. So half of everybody is mentally overturned. Their mind, their life, their being, everything about them has been challenged at a level that they can't deal with. And no wonder the suicide rate is up. And so what I said before is, where are the recesses of our mind that need light? Because light is the disinfectant that we need for this disease of confusion.
Yeah, what comes to mind is that you could say there's this greater conspiracy out there. And then I want to point to in here, like inside a person, inside a human being. Consider there's a conspiracy inwardly against truth. There's an enemy within that doesn't want you to wake up, that doesn't want you to prosper and flourish. It's very strange, but we all have that. We're all born into doubt, and the truth is the way out of doubt. But when there's this conspiracy within and without, to suppress truth and have doubt win the day, it's inevitable to live a life in darkness. Now, people compensate, right? People they find exit doors, or they find hacks or workarounds. You get success, get more money will make me happy, or give me freedom, or more sex, or more drugs, or more friends, or more something. But what ends up happening is we get at the crux of it, no matter where you're going awry, consider that you do not have your priorities straight. And what I mean by that is, what do you prioritize above and beyond your first priority? Now, for me, my first priority is God, my connection to God and my Creator. And if that's my first priority, and that's, if I allow myself to be a slave to anything else but that highest within me, the one that my God, the one God, I'm going to say, within me, if I'm not free in that connection, then I'm a slave to whatever, anything and everything else I allow myself to be a slave to. So there's nothing worthy of my attention and energy beyond that one priority, that one God. And what I mean is, well, let's look at what's happening in society. I know that alcohol is a god. People bow down to it. They bow down to it. They surrender to it. They become a slave to it. And that becomes their god. Gambling is a god. Music can be a god. Drugs, a god. Porn, a god. Food, you can make food your god. You can make your wife your god. You can make your kids the god. All things that take your attention and demand that you serve it as a god is a god. What's a word for that? The idolatry, mm-hmm. Right? But if you don't allow anything to get control of you, then you're free. Like if you don't allow anything to own your mind, other things that become priorities could be work, could be success, the drive for a certain kind of success to fill some void. If you don't allow anything to get control of you, then you're free and you can deal with it all because you're free of it all, so to speak. It doesn't own you. You can use things and utilize things, but you don't have to be owned. It's owned by them. When you become owned by anything, then that becomes a god, so to speak, your creator. And that makes you serve it until you master it and become so intimate with it, then you become the slave to it. We bow to these false gods, these false priorities, and not the true creator within. Yeah. What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, how many of those priorities are actually original to every person? So that's a really
versus adopted or inherited.
That's right. Yeah. Because we are all, and I love the way you describe this, we are outformed as opposed to inwardly formed, right? And in the process of being outformed, the world feeds you ideas. Now, I used to work with a person, and I've been in the radio business many years, and this person always would asked me for feedback on the topic that they were discussing on the show, on a radio show that day. And as soon as I would give the idea, the person would take it and co-opt it and own it, which was fine because that was my job. But you see, what people don't realize is that the ideas that come to them, nobody wants to feel like they're unoriginal. Nobody wants to feel like they're a knockoff or a phony. Everybody wants to feel like, well, that's a great idea. And then the minute you approve of an idea for whatever reason, you begin to integrate that into your mindset and your thinking and your front and your back of mind thinking as if you came up with it. And this is why bad ideas stick with people. Because the minute you become in agreement with a bad idea, even if it's the worst idea you ever had, in other words, when a guy's robbing a bank, he thinks it's the right thing to do at that moment. Do you know what I'm saying? They think that that's the right thing to do for whatever reason. When somebody's doing something crazy,
they will make it right. They will make
somehow
it right.
they rationalize
they'll reason it. They'll rationalize it into it makes sense. Yeah. Well, similarly, you make sense of it. So even if I make something a priority, and in fact make it like a god that I worship, food, let's say that, those cookies or that thing I want, chips, but if I'm so weak to that I give into that, part of me has made that my source of, like, it has a power over me. I have a weak, like, I don't want to be weak. I don't want to be a slave like that to alcohol or to, look at pot. Our culture, people use pot. People who use pot is a god. If it wasn't a god, people wouldn't want it so much. I gotta have it. I gotta have that, that piece of cake, or I gotta have that ice cream, or I gotta have that drink. If it wasn't a god and they weren't so weak to it, a slave to it, then they wouldn't need it. But they bow to it, and that becomes something greater than themselves. And right there, you become outformed. You become subject to the strongest outer force. And whether it's a piece of cake or a drink or a puff, it translates over to people. You then you make people your God. You make the strongest person around you, or you idolize your, celebrities or music icons, or your preacher or pastor. You'll turn anyone into, you'll put people up on a pedestal and worship a person. People do that to Jesus. A lot of Christians do that to Jesus. They turn him into an idol, which he warned against. But if you're doing it with food, you'll do it to Jesus. If you're doing it to food, you'll do it to the Buddha. If you're doing it to food, you then become subject to whatever,
Okay. So, false gods. Now, why do people adopt false gods? And the answer is not always obvious, but a false god serves you. And then in return, you serve the false god.
Wait, how does it serve you? What do you get from it?
That's a great question.
How is it serving you? Yeah.
Of course, because like, for example, food. Food serves you. Drink serves you. What it does is it gives you something that you think you need. It gives you something to make you feel better. Even religion does that.
Yeah.
It serves
it's an opiate.
you.
Yeah. But it's a drug of sorts.
There's a selfishness involved in adopting these gods. These false gods are self-serving gods.
Wow, you're numbing out from the truth.
Yeah.
The calling of your conscience. You're drowning it out by having these other things serve you. By making these other things more important, and those become your priorities, not
and
the
you
one
become
first
its
priority.
Slave.
Yeah.
When it serves you, what you have to give it in return is your your fealty. You have to give it your loyalty. This is the mother of addiction, by the way. Why do you think people smoke dope? Because it makes them feel good. So now they're a slave to feeling good. And now they work their whole lives to get the money to buy the dope, whatever it may be, the psychotropic drugs, the drink, the vapes, the smokes, whatever it may be.
It's all a diversion from reality, because people listening right now who are like potheads, they're like, what are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense. Well, okay, why do you need it? What would happen if you didn't have it? So I know friends who smoke pot, and they try to quit, and man, a few days out, cold turkey, man, you see this rage and anger boiling up, or their fear, or they're just in their head, and they don't know how to deal with that on their own, from their own kind of resources. So just get curious, like, well, wait, what if, okay, I'm saying I don't need it, but it does alter my mood. Why do you need to alter your, why would you have to alter your mood? Is there something about your natural mood that sucks, that you don't like, that doesn't feel good, that you need to alter? Like, what are you doing that's causing a mood that you don't want to experience? So, and therefore you need to anesthetize it. Consider your real power would be to get to the source of what's making you unnaturally not deal with reality. And because if you get to the source and you handle the source, maybe you eradicate it, you heal it, you experience it in a new way where you recontextualize it. So what was a wound now becomes wisdom, or what was an emotional lemon becomes some sweet lemonade. But it's like, but people they just want to gloss over. And it's back to the point, there's a greater conspiracy for mediocrity and worse in mediocrity to push people down into a dumbing down, where people are not aware, they're not awake. I mean, if you're half awake, look around what's happening with people. People are checked out. If their face isn't planted into a device, their phone, or, a show, the TV, or some kind of distraction, diversion, all their attention, typically, just look around, man, people are checked out, and they're checked out to being checked out. They're not present to what's actually going on internally. They're medicating it.
Is that what dark caverns within you need the cleansing power of sunlight? Because what's happening is that if there are things that are growing in the dark, if there's fear or frustration or anger or needs that you're not dealing with properly, and they're down there in that dark space festering, they're absorbing the life force that you have. You see, you only have so much time in this life. Everybody knows that. That's a given. But your energy is like a battery, and it's being depleted. And what these false gods want to do is they want to take you all the way into your life, to your battery life, so that it's exhausted, so that you never actually know the truth that sets you free, whatever the truth may be. And when I said truth has light in it, and that the conspiracy is against the truth, because the truth brings light to those dark caverns that are festering with unhealthy things. See, all attitudes can create symptoms in the body. Attitudes and body problems, health problems, are synonymous. And so when light is introduced into those dark caverns, we have the potential to do self-reflection and see what it is that's really at the core of why we're unhappy. And because I'll tell you something, you'll never be happier, never, until you reach living authentically in this present moment. It's the happiest moment you will ever have in your life, and it's maintainable and sustainable. You can live that way every single moment of every day. It doesn't mean that things are going to come along that are going to try to knock you out, but living now in the present,
getting present,
being real in the moment, that is only where happiness, real true happiness and joy exist.
Yeah, no, very good. And it's not like a platitude, like, oh yeah, get present and live in the now, and everything gets perfect from there. It's not like that. It's more real than that. It's when you really get present, you are present to what's actually going on with you, your experience, the way out of, I know for myself, trauma I've healed. It's only through the experiencing of it. If you want to heal it, you've got to get present to it. You've got to experience it. You've got to feel it. But when you experience it from a context also of giving it up and from a deep yearning to be free, not to just experience it and feel it so you can go become more of a victim about it and woe with me. No, I think attitude, the intent that someone has, and I know in my own experience of the desire to really let things go and heal and move on, that's a requirement. Whether you're in therapy or whatever, it's not going to be any good, actually, if you don't have a deep, sincere, genuine desire to heal, to be, transformed through the renewing of your mind from within, kind of thing, but to actually be transformed through your creator, from a higher power. But that's really you can't handle things by just taking a pill or taking a puff or taking a drink or taking a puff. It's not going to happen from the outside. This is something that is between me, myself, and I. And this is between you, the person wearing your shirt, listening to this show, wearing your shoes, or wherever you're in, wherever your feet are right now. It's between you, yourself, and your creator, your higher power, whatever you look to. But I say, like, offer it up to something greater, but with a desire to become whole and complete in yourself. And you can only do that if you get present. And the first access to getting present is the clear revelation or the clear truth, being truthful, honest, that you're not about not being present. Like, oh, wow, aha, I see it. I'm not present in my life. I'm not present in myself. I'm not aware of myself. That is the way out. That the way in is the way out is through, but it's through the now here moment. And the first point to access the now is to wake up to, oh, I'm not here right now. I'm somewhere in my head, my imagination, somewhere else, but I'm not right here. In the moment of that awareness that I'm not here, you get yourself here. Then that's the living meditation of just, okay, I'm here. Okay, I'm not here. I'm here. But when you get present, and that's the power of meditation, is to sit still. And that's why it's difficult, because when you sit still, your whole life catches up to you. The ways of living, the ways of doing, the ways of reacting, all of it's right here. And you either experience it or you run the hell out of the room and you go give me a puff, give me a drink, give me something to numb out, anesthetize, alter the mood quick. Because maybe meditation's great for some people, but man, for me, it's painful. It hurts. It's uncomfortable. I don't like it. Yeah, maybe great for others, not great for me. So I'll just keep puffing or drinking away. Or whatever the thing is, just staying busy and reactive. And drama is a drug too, right, David?
Oh, yeah, it's a big one. Yeah, I was going to say that anybody that's ever taken a trip anywhere, let's just say a destination that you wanted to go to, it's a place that you're going. And I will describe this to you as that joy and peace and happiness are a place. And the way that you go there is moment by moment being able to deny the things that are keeping you from being there. And that is how simple it really boils down to. Every time you have the impulse to get frustrated, to be impatient, to grab for a piece of cake, to use some alcohol or some kind of a drug, the minute you get to that point where you're ready to say, okay, I'm not going to use this to keep me from feeling that anymore.
I'm not going to give it my power.
Not going to give it. That's
give
the
it
false
all
God
my
thing.
power so
right?
that I don't have to experience this right here.
That's right.
Yeah.
But
when
that
you
moment,
give that up, in that moment, you give that up, and
that moment you're on the journey, because when you're in your car and you're driving 6 hours to go somewhere, takes 6 hours to get there. Mm-hmm. Some people want to jump out of their skin on the way there because they have all this rampant anxiety and they don't know oh my God, what's it going to be like? All these things kind of melt away when you let the light in, because the light cleanses all of these impulsive feelings that you have, all the worry, all the fear. Let the light in. It cleanses the interior of your being. It shows you, don't accept that. Don't go there again. Don't make that same mistake expecting a different outcome. If you just embrace the light, that's all. Learn to sit still, exactly as Baron was describing. Be still just for a moment at a time. And each time you're still, that's a moment where you're not moving in the wrong direction.
Yeah. Yeah. Right now is all we've got. It's just good to know that right now is all you've got. If you're going to change a habit, a pattern of reactivity, patterns of self-sabotage or undermining yourself or others, or changing the way you, not just behavior. So I say the first thing to change, and the only place I can change this is right now. And the thing to change is your outlook, or another way of saying it is how the world is showing up for you, because it can show up for you as the victim. You're at the effect of everything. You're at the victim. You're helpless, a leaf in the wind, a bottle being tossed around in the sea, just taken along at the effect of everything, helpless. Or you are an outlook of how whatever's showing up for you, you're able, you're capable, you have the power to choose your response. You have the ability to be with anything in life in a powerful way and from a place of free within yourself. That's a real possibility. But the only way you can get the outlook that you want for life and that you actually have within you is through right now. And so to know right now is all I've got. If I'm going to alter how the world is showing up for me and who I am in the face of whatever's showing up for me, am I the victim? Am I helpless? Or am I able, responsible, able to respond at however you wish, but in a way that's powerful and leaves you in peace and from, a place of love, whatever you want. But you only can alter anything right now. So we could say, you just said it's a place, freedom, joy, lightness of being. It's a place. It's there, but where is the place? Well, it's wherever that place is. It's always going to be right here, wherever that, and it's a place within ourselves that exists. Where? Right here. When? Now. Within who? You. I mean, and right now is all you've got, and you make something greater than yourself, creator, God, your first priority, and you stand in that, and then nothing else has to be a priority. That cookie, that piece of cake, that drink, that puff, that, the couch and Netflix calling you. You don't have to be a slave to those things because you have your priorities sorted out and clear for you. And then you can use those other things. You could, eat the food. You have a glass of wine. You can use things and enjoy life, but not be a slave to it.
Yeah, and not try to get salvation from it. And the scripture says, through patience possess ye your soul. And that's, see, the place that we're going requires for you to take one moment at a time, not get ahead of yourself, not spend your time looking too much in the rearview mirror. Stay right here where you are as you're going down that road of life. Be present as you're driving. When you get distracted, man, you're in danger.
Yeah.
See, that all that distraction, all those false gods are trying to, me, get me, take me, use me, get involved with me. Everything is calling to you. You go to the refrigerator, you can hear the chocolate cake saying, eat me, eat me. It's all yelling at you. And you just have to just become objective to it long enough to realize that's not the answer.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. I think it's a powerful place to press pause here. So, yeah, very good. And you all, thank you. Please share the show. We appreciate you. The show is growing and the downloads are increasing, and it's very inspiring to see. So thank you. And it's really through you sharing the show is how that's happening. Really, that's it. And so please keep sharing, and please be well. And remember, in the bigger picture and in truth, all is well. All right, David, thank you. Be well.
Blessings.
Till next time.
To all.
Yeah.